Double battles were first introduced during the third generation of Pokémon with Ruby and Sapphire, taking place in the Hoenn region on the Game Boy Advance. Though technically, the anime did experiment with double battles in more gimmicky situations if needing to raise the tension of a battle, like during the Orange Islands arc prior to the start of Generation 3. There are overall only a handful of double battles throughout the story of Ruby and Sapphire, most notably with the Battle of Liza and Tate, the first gym to be a double battle. The most double battles could be encountered in the Battle Tower, where trainers could battle wave after wave of trainers to earn rewards to purchase special items. But this was locked to the post-game, and the Battle Tower turned many players away due to not gaining experience for their Pokemon, and even the rewards they did get, if attempted, were minuscule compared to the time needed to invest to earn them. A new feature introduced in Ruby and Sapphire were secret bases. Here, players could create an opening using the move Secret Power on specially marked trees or rock formations to reveal a room and decorate the inside with furniture, posters, and various other items. It's a fun concept, and players could seek out all the secret base locations to choose their favorite layouts. Connecting with someone's game would allow their character and team to be saved wherever their secret base was located in the other person's game, and vice versa. Their friends could visit the secret base if discovered, and they would have the opportunity to battle the player once a day, preset as either single battles or double battles. Connecting to multiple people's games and accessing their secret bases can allow for numerous opportunities to experience double battles every day. Despite being a major feature introduced to shake up the established formula 2 generations in, double battles weren't featured much throughout these games, almost seeming like an afterthought in hindsight. Enter Pokémon Emerald. Emerald was released after Ruby and Sapphire and added many improvements to the foundation set by Ruby and Sapphire, including a lot more double battle opportunities. There are newly added forced double battle encounters as well as a myriad of optional double battles. This is a great decision by the developers to allow whether players want a more standard experience with single battles or immerse themselves in the generation's simplest yet most creative mechanic. Forced double battles would have random NPCs like ace trainers teaming up, and even story battles like the player teaming up with the previous Hoenn champion Steven Stone to take on both the leader and admin of Team Magma, really raising the stakes of the story beat. It also added the fan favorite Battle Frontier, which added multiple challenging battle facilities, including the returning Battle Tower. And as for mods, there's one for Pokemon Emerald called Pokemon Emerald Double Version, where every battle, aside from intro battle, is a double battle. Wild battles, trainer battles, gym leaders, everything. Not only that, but it adds the physical special split, fairy typing, high difficulty curve, and even more. This mod was inspired by Pokemon Colosseum, and it's easy to see why. Pokemon Colosseum and XD Gala Darkness are 2 Pokemon games released on the GameCube that focused entirely on double battles. They both stood out by exclusively using the generation's new battle feature as well as upping the difficulty. Though, there are 2 battles in Gala Darkness which are single battles, excluding the sim battles. And while on the subject, sim battles are challenges in singles and doubles format that are essentially puzzles, where players must figure out how to defeat the opponent using predetermined Pokemon and moves. There are simple puzzles like the first one, a single battle, where there's a 2-turn limit. Here, Pidgeot needs to hit the Tropius with Double Edge, and then when it uses Fly, to attack with Gust, because Gust can hit Pokemon using Fly, which I didn't even know. Another simple battle setup, but on the double side, is being paired with a Plusle and Minun to take out a Miltank and Tropius. The goal is to use Helping Hand with Minun and boost Plusle's electric-type attacks to complete the battle. Without Helping Hand, the battle can't be completed and shows how important buffing teammates can be. Later on, there are battles that can take multiple attempts due to their difficulty. There is a really unique battle which can feel like a boss fight. It involves the player entering a double battle with an Eevee, along with all of its evolutions until that point in the series. They are all level 30, and the goal is to defeat a single Mew at level 50. These battles can be surprisingly in-depth and good for experts and new players alike. Sim battles are a test to see the knowledge experts have, and is a pretty good learning tool to teach new Pokemon fans how moves and abilities can interact. Gala Darkness does thrive as a doubles-focused game on its own merit, introducing new shadow moves that are super effective against non-shadow Pokemon, adding a good layer of depth to it. But personally, I think sim battles are where Gala Darkness truly shines, especially because no other Pokemon game has ever offered such challenges, and even experts can learn a thing or two. Pokemon from the main story of these GameCube games can be transferred over to Ruby and Sapphire once the handheld and home console games are completed. With Ruby and Sapphire, players can trade and battle Pokemon with each other in person like in the previous generations. Here, players can partake in single battles, double battles, and multi-battles. Multi-battles are double battles that consist of 2 players battling 2 others. And it's battling with others that allows for many creative opportunities. Single battles focus on switching Pokemon to avoid counters and abuse type effectiveness. Double battles focus less on switching and possess more team structure to take advantage of different moves and abilities more efficiently. In competitive battles, singles usually have a couple core members and a few teammates to cover the weaknesses or common counters. Doubles, however, usually have Pokemon with certain sets of moves in conjunction with abilities to lead to an end goal. Weather teams are the most iconic with this concept of team building. Weather teams consist of Pokemon that benefit from a weather effect generated from either moves or abilities. The weather conditions are rain, sun, sandstorm, and hail. Each condition allows for different abilities to activate. For example, a rain team takes a sweeper role and focuses on water-type Pokemon setting up the rain to activate their Swift Swim abilities. Using Rain Dance boosts the power of water-type moves, and Swift Swim doubles a Pokemon's speed when raining. This is a very effective double strategy and often one of the best in double formats due to the power of water moves being boosted by 50% as well as slower Pokemon going first. Another style of play is Stall. Sandstorm teams generally have bulkier Pokemon compared to other weather teams like Rain and Sun teams, which tend to run faster, less defensive Pokemon. Sandstorm boosts the special defense of Rock-type Pokemon by 50%, but most notably inflicts chip damage every turn to Pokemon that are not Rock, Steel, Ground, or has an ability that prevents Sandstorm damage. For example, Pokemon with the ability Sand Veil have their evasiveness increased by 20% with Sand Up. A Cacturn with Sand Veil using Double Team after a Sandstorm is active makes it pretty difficult to hit. This would allow it to safely hide behind a substitute, use Swords Dance, and then hit opponents with powerful attacks, all while passively chipping health away from weather. Another effective doubles move is Trick Room. Trick Room was introduced at the start of Generation 4 in Diamond and Pearl. It simply allows for the slowest Pokemon to go first. But sometimes, simplicity is all that is needed for an effective outcome. Some very powerful Pokemon are usually balanced by having low speed so other Pokemon would have a chance to beat them. But with Trick Room, that speed restriction is removed, allowing for these slow but powerful Pokemon to strike first, putting an end to a lot of sweepers. I am personally a big fan of Sunny Day teams, mostly because I just love fire types. Spent a lot of time putting a couple teams together revolving around abusing the sun with chlorophyll users to double grass type speed, boosting fire type attacks, and even electric type Pokemon whose purpose were to counter water types, helping against Rain Dance teams. A really unique Pokemon I used on one of my teams was a Togekiss, which I considered one of my MVPs. Back in Generation 4, before Drought was a legal ability, I would have Sceptile with Sunny Day because it was one of the fastest users of the move. I had Togekiss use Follow Me to reduce the risk of Sceptile getting taken out so it could safely set up the sun and then recall it for another member on the team. It would also help keep my Typhlosion be protected from targetable attacks to get maximum power from Eruption's HP requirement. Togekiss benefited from Sunny Day from having learned Flamethrower to help cover against ice types if I wanted to keep Sceptile out. I would also mix it around by sending out Manectric and Electivire to abuse Motor Drive to boost Electivire's speed. Manectric did see use as a sweeper who took advantage of the sun using Flamethrower as well as my Electivire with Fire Punch. I also threw in some gimmicky setups with Generation 6 Gale Wings Talonflame to pair with my Eruption Typhlosion or my Choice Banded Darmanitan attacking with a sun-boosted Flare Blitz. A really gimmicky but fun double setup is a Gravity team. Gravity is a non-damaging move that increases the accuracy of all moves aside from one-hit KO moves by about 1.6%. It also forces flying and levitating Pokemon to be grounded so they are affected by ground-type moves. I use moves like Will-O-Wisp and Focus Blast, which have a tendency to miss when most important, now have an accuracy rate of 100%. With Gravity active and a Prankster Sableye, it's never been easier to inflict Will-O-Wisp, and a 90% accurate Hypnosis coming from a speedy Gengar is always fun to abuse, assuming I'm not Will-O-Wisping everything in sight. This burn spamming also allows for certain effort values or EVs to be allocated elsewhere. For example, running an Eviolite Dusclops with all points being dumped into HP and special defense. This results in the burns doing the heavy lifting on the physically defensive side of its bulk, and Gravity prevents those pesky 90% heat waves, which sometimes feel like 50%, from missing their targets when they could cost the battle. I'll finish with a Sandstorm team. This focuses on getting Sand Up with Stoutland out. Stoutland has the ability Sand Rush, so it's unaffected by chip damage, and it has its speed doubled. Its moveset consists of only two moves, Protect and Last Resort. Last Resort is a powerful move with 130 base power, and with Stab, which stands for Same Type Attack Bonus, boosts the move that matches the Pokemon's type by 50%, increasing to 195. Investing its effort values into its attack, giving it an attack boosting nature, and an item to further boost its attack like a Life Orb can make it an incredibly powerful sweeper. The Pokemon I used to set up Sand is Hippowdon, which I invested all of its EVs into HP and special defense. I gave it Curse to boost its untouched attack and defense stats to give it the offensive and defensive bulk it lacks from EVs. Curse will bulk itself up, and when it's low enough on health, Slack Off will heal up to 50% of its HP. The other members generally consisted of powerful rock, steel, or ground types like Tyranitar, Mega Mawile, or Garchomp to help clean up the remaining Pokemon. The Pokemon used in these examples aren't the best competitively, but I wanted to use some of my favorites and also to see how well I could build a team with limitations. And I'd rather play the game my way, to lose with a team I really care about than the best, and it makes victory that much more satisfying. And I would say something along the lines crossed the mind of Sejun Park, a participant for the 2014 Pokemon World Championships who was in the Masters division. This was less than a year after Pokemon X and Y released on the 3DS. He would seem to be like any other entrant in the tournament, using strong Pokemon at his disposal to give him his best chances at victory. However, because X and Y were still reasonably new and teams were still being figured out, not everything was set in stone. And on top of this, despite Pokemon Bank being available to transfer previous generations of Pokemon over, only Pokemon native to X and Y were allowed. This led to players needing to be smart with their choices and couldn't just bring in their old reliables, making for some pretty unique teams. But many teams ran some of the same obviously powerful Pokemon from the start of the generation, like Garchomp, Tyranitar, Aegislash, Mega Mawile, and Mega Kangaskhan. And rightfully so. It gave them the best chance at victory. But again, this was a year that allowed for experimentation, and Sejun knew that. 4 members of his team were Garchomp, Talonflame, Gyarados, and Gardevoir, some common powerhouses found here. He built a team he could rely on, but it still needed that glue to hold it all together. He wanted a move redirector, but didn't want to rely on the usual tried and true Amoonguss. Its use was impacted by Pokemon that held safety goggles, an item that negated powder moves like Rage Powder, basically the bug equivalent of Follow Me, and Talonflame, Rotom Heat, and Mega Charizard flew around frequently in this tournament. Knowing this, he decided there were a couple of other things he could take advantage of. He used a Gothitelle, not used much but had a powerful ability in Shadow Tag, preventing opponents from switching out their Pokemon. This would allow him to lock down opponents that would be an easy KO to give him solid momentum in the battle. The Pokemon no one ever saw coming though was his move redirector, Pachirisu. Pachirisu is nothing special, simply made to be a Pika clone of the generation as per usual. It has pretty underwhelming stats, hitting no harder than a wet paper towel, but its speed is quite solid and could be worked with. If anything, it could be used as a supportive Pokemon, and that's exactly what Sejun did. His Pachirisu knew the moves Nuzzle, Follow Me, Super Fang, and Protect. A big disrupting move normally with electric-type Pokemon is Thunder Wave, a non-damaging move that paralyzes an opponent, cutting their speed in half. However, the move Taunt likes to float around and prevents non-damaging moves from activating, forcing only damage-inflicting moves. Nuzzle is the outlier. It was a newcomer to the roster of moves in Generation 6. It is a damage-inflicting 100% accurate move that inflicts paralysis on the opponent, allowing for the Thunder Wave effect to get around Taunt. Follow Me is a move near and dear to my heart, and I used it a lot with my wonderful Togekiss. So seeing Follow Me be used in the official competitive scene, the World Championships no less, warmed my heart a little. But it's interesting, because during Generation 6, only about 10 Pokemon could use the move, making it very rare to encounter. And the limited amount of Pokemon able to use the move weren't bulky enough to take advantage of it, aside from realistically Clefable and Togekiss, neither of which were from X and Y. The next best choice was Pachirisu, given its bulk and one weakness. He would pair this with solid EV distribution and a Citrus Berry for safe measure. He could switch Pachirisu into opposing electric types that would threaten his Talonflame and Gyarados due to its Volt Absorb ability and heal itself, making its sustainability surprisingly high. His Gyarados' Intimidate ability could also help it survive hits it normally wouldn't. Super Fang cuts the opposing Pokemon's HP in half regardless of how bad Pachirisu's attack set is, making for a reliable offensive move at full health, and Protect protects itself from its teammates' Earthquakes. The 2014 World Championships were the perfect time to use Pachirisu because not only were the other more reliable Follow Me users not allowed, but it worked out that it could fit inside a niche to redirect and tank attacks its teammates wouldn't want to take, like the rampant Brave Birds from Talonflame, electric moves from the various Rotom hovering around, and the ever-dangerous, threatening Landorus T weren't anywhere to be found because it wasn't native to Kalos. The little Pika clone lucked out big time and fortunately was given its time to shine. And the fact that Sejun Park not only used this underdog Pokemon on his team, he went on and became the Masters Division Pokemon World Champion on top of that, feeling like an underdog story just like in the Pokemon anime. With this, it spawned numerous memes, got merchandise, and even was recognized in the 2022 World Championships. And I cannot talk about creativity in double battles without talking about Pokemon contests, specifically from the anime. Contests are where trainers work with their Pokemon to show off their moves in visually appealing ways. Sadly, they weren't much more than a distraction in the GBA and DS games, considering the games used static sprites. However, build an animated show around the concept and enter one of the most visually appealing aspects of Pokemon. Contests featured prominently in the Advanced Generation and Diamond and Pearl series and took the contest feature introduced in Ruby and Sapphire and made entire story arcs around them. Ash would go around collecting gym badges to enter the Pokemon League as per usual, and the female protagonists of the Advanced Generation and Diamond and Pearl series, being May and Dawn respectively, would compete in Pokemon contests and earn contest ribbons to enter the Grand Festival, where they would have the chance to become top coordinator. Sure, battles are adrenaline pumping, but seeing how creative the trainers and by extension the show's writers can be with taking moves used for fighting and putting them in the equivalent of a magical dog show, moves can be combined and wow not only the in-universe audience, but simultaneously the show's audience is in a league of its own. There really is nothing like it. It expands the world building of Pokemon and makes for a much more entertaining show, and in terms of goal-driven characters and presentation, the imagination put into these can be pretty jaw-dropping. There are 2 rounds in contests. The first round is the performance stage, where the contest coordinator brings out a Pokemon style by using moves to get the best reaction from the judges. The second is the battle stage. This is the second and final round where 2 coordinators enter a double battle while still showing off their moves and are judged on how they interact with their opponents. They have the potential to be some of the most entertaining, delivering some of the best double battles in the entire series due to the interactions of moves on display. During the performance stage, a Pokemon might shoot an ice attack to form it into a structure, or use one move after another to combine into a beautiful display of elemental mastery. Even non-damaging moves are effective for showing off a Pokemon's moves. They are pretty entertaining as a concept, and a nice way to warm up the coordinators and their Pokemon before the difficult and tense second round, an appetizer to the main course. Characters will use moves that combine into a powerful attack or combine together to stop an attack or even dodge them. The ways Pokemon move together must be in sync and show a strong level of trust and coordination between them and their coordinators. One of my favorites from the Advanced Generation is May vs. Drew in the Battle Frontier arc. To set the stage, May fell out of the previous Grand Festival from losing to her rival, Drew, so there was a lot on the line for May to not take this loss in their second Grand Festival outing. Here, May uses Squirtle and Combusken, Drew uses Flygon and Absol. May starts off with Squirtle using Rapid Spin, and Flygon shoots a Sandstorm directed at it. May has Combusken jump on Squirtle's Rapid Spin and launches itself at Flygon with Mega Kick. Drew directs Absol to use Flash, where it jumps in for Sandstorm and blasts rays of light piercing throughout it, reaching Combusken, thus stopping the attack. It follows up with Iron Tail, forcing Combusken to the ground. Not wishing to lose traction, May uses Combusken's Sky Uppercut and Squirtle's Bubble Attack. Drew calls for Flygon to dodge and Absol's powerful Razor Wind, where it connects with Combusken as well as Squirtle and results in a big explosion. Wasting no time, Flygon gains altitude, and Drew has Flygon use Flamethrower while May's Pokemon haven't recovered from his previous attack. Her Pokemon quickly regain their footing and has Combusken launch a Fire Spin. The Fire Spin wraps around the Flamethrower and explodes, causing both Pokemon to take big damage. Drew has his Pokemon take Dragon Formation, preparing for his attack, and Absol uses Razor Wind while Flygon flaps its wings to increase the move speed. Then, Flygon uses Dragon Breath, causing the attacks to combine together. The combined move is so big, May's Pokemon are unable to avoid it and are hit hard. Drew's Pokemon take Dragon Formation once again and use Steel moves to attack. May retaliates with Fire Spin and Bubble, which combine together, fusing fire and water, a technique she learned from one of Ash's battles with the Frontier Brain. This results in Drew's Pokemon taking heavy damage. Both sides look pretty worn out, but that doesn't stop their determination to win. Absol uses Flash, and May cleverly goes for Squirtle's Rapid Spin, which prevents Flash from affecting it. To protect Absol, Drew goes for Flygon's Steel Wind, but Squirtle dodges at the last second. May tells Squirtle to use Bubble, but Drew fearfully yells for a Razor Wind attack, to which May immediately responds with a Fire Spin from Combusken. Absol aims Razor Wind at Squirtle. Combusken lets loose Fire Spin, both colliding, causing a smoke screen. This prevents Flygon from seeing Squirtle and allows for Bubble to go off for a direct hit on Flygon. May does not let up for a second and drops a devastating 4 times effective Ice Beam from the air. Point blank. Savage. She was not holding back. This takes out Flygon and makes the battle a 2v1, but not for long. Squirtle starts falling and Drew takes his chance to use Absol's Iron Tail on it, launching it against the wall. Drew took Flygon's loss personally and dealt just as much savagery to May's Squirtle. With Squirtle out, it's a 1v1 and neither coordinator lets up. Combusken rockets forward with a Mega Kick and Absol strikes back with an Iron Tail, both connecting fiercely. Drew goes for Razor Wind and is a powerful direct hit. Combusken gains his footing and uses Fire Spin. Drew responds with Absol releasing a Water Pulse. Combusken tries to stop it with its Fire Spin but is unable and takes massive damage. Out of nowhere, as if in retaliation, Combusken learns the move Overheat. A very powerful attack, but becomes weaker each time. Drew, anticipating something dangerous, has Absol use Razor Wind. May knows exactly what to do and attacks with Combusken's new Overheat. It absolutely annihilates Razor Wind and connects with Absol for a powerful hit. Combusken jumps and uses Overheat again, but Drew uses Absol's Water Pulse to create a wall of water to extinguish it. Without letting up, Absol uses Flash, but to mimic Squirtle's Rapid Spin, Combusken quickly spins towards its target until within reach. May has Combusken use Overheat point blank and it's a direct hit. However, due to multiple uses, Absol seems to shake it off and displays a nice sparkling effect from the flames. Absol launches a Razor Wind, and despite May's efforts for her Pokemon to dodge the attack, it connects. Keeping up the momentum, Drew uses Water Pulse with the intent to finish off the battle, and May places all of her bets on a final Overheat to weaken the damage from the Water-type attack. And it does. Drew is confident he clutched it and has Absol go for an Iron Tail. Absol jumps into the air and readies its attack. And then...
Sky Uppercut!
Combusken goes 110% and sprints with the hardest build-up for a move and delivers the rawest uppercut to a Pokemon, finally defeating Drew, earning May the well-deserved win. Now, moving to the Diamond and Pearl series, things get kicked up a notch. Dawn's main rival is Zoe, who Dawn not only lost to earlier in the series, but has always been a step ahead. Dawn is facing her in the Grand Festival Finals. Dawn chooses her Piplup and Togekiss, while Zoe chooses her Glameow and Gallade, and the timer begins. Dawn starts the battle by having Piplup jump on Togekiss's back, then flies up and uses Aura Sphere, while Piplup uses Bubble Beam, which surrounds the attack. Zoe tells Glameow to use Shadow Claw, cutting the Aura Sphere, while Gallade is ordered to Psycho Cut the bubbles, and they dissipate. A brief pause, and Dawn as Piplup go for Hydro Pump, but without hesitation, Zoe calls for Glameow to use its Fake Out, which stops Piplup's attack. Zoe orders Gallade to Vacuum Wave Togekiss, but it gracefully dodges the move and quickly sends an Aura Sphere Gallade's way, which it barely avoids. Zoe is surprised at Togekiss's speed and gives recognition. Zoe starts with Gallade's Signal Beam and Glameow's Iron Tail. Gallade releases its move at Glameow's tail, absorbing the energy. Dawn has Piplup use Whirlpool and combines it with Togekiss's Aura Sphere. Glameow hurls its attack and they collide in spectacular fashion. Gallade uses Swords Dance, and to not feel left out, Dawn calls for Safeguard on Togekiss. Zoe gets shown up and decides to pull an old trick. She targets Togekiss with Glameow's Shadow Claw, which would be ineffective due to being part normal type. Dawn points this out and goes for Sky Attack, but Brock calls it like he sees it and says it's a bluff. See, Zoe did this exact same thing in a contest against Ash towards the beginning of the series. She did this all to throw Dawn off. She has Gallade use Psycho Cut, which forces Dawn to attack it with Piplup. This causes her to lose sight of Togekiss, where the true goal was to get Togekiss close to Glameow using a physical attack. It uses its spring-like tail to jump onto Togekiss's back, and Zoe's plan is all but complete. Togekiss is all about grace, but flailing around out of control like that is anything but. Glameow puts the final touch to Zoe's plan and unleashes a super effective Thunderball onto Togekiss. However, Dawn's need to show up Zoe pays off and quickly cuts Thunderball's power short. She takes advantage of this momentum stopper and has Piplup go to back up Togekiss. And even though Gallade shoots a vacuum wave, Piplup spins right around and springboards off of its head, getting above the airborne Pokemon. Not missing a second, Dawn tells Piplup to use Hydro Pump and blast Glameow off as Piplup lands safely on Togekiss's back. Gallade goes onto the offensive with Psycho Cut, and Togekiss gracefully avoids all of them. Zoe tries one more time with Psycho Cut and forces the two to separate. Thinking quickly, Dawn has Piplup use Whirlpool at the opposing Pokemon and directs Togekiss to distract Zoe. Zoe refuses to fall for it and commands Glameow to use Iron Tail, and with it catches the attack. She then targets Gallade's Vacuum Wave at the Whirlpool and splits it beautifully. Unfazed, but running out of time, Dawn goes for a final combination attack, and Zoe does the same.
Let's go!
It really is a shame Dawn lost, since we don't like seeing characters we root for lose, but Zoe edged out in terms of appeal and skills. Even throughout the battle, Zoe had the advantage nearly the entire time. Dawn was merely playing catch-up. Dawn's mother, once a top coordinator herself, could tell during the battle that Zoe basically had it on lock, and her expression, or lack thereof, gave it away. But Dawn more than proved herself as a great coordinator. Regardless, this was the last Pokemon contest battle in the anime, and what a way to go out. It really showed the creativity from a visual standpoint. Double battles offer the tools given to players, and on depending on the skills they have, the potential to get the most out of Pokemon and their strengths, despite their weaknesses. A structured doubles team feels like the culmination of a player's knowledge they've acquired throughout their experiences, and are ready to put their team building and skills to the test. There seems to be no limit with the building possibilities given the Pokemon, moves, abilities, and items accessible. It allows for this massive toolbox to be tinkered with until it clicks for the player, and even then, curiosity leads them down the rabbit hole where spending hours finding different strategies and combinations feels normal, and shows how creative double battles can be.